Welcome back to Razmafzar TV. Hi, Beat. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
We are going to talk about Mongolia, but before talking about Mongolia, I had an idea because a member of our YouTube channel asked, we already, you know that I was in different Russian museums working with colleagues, and we talked about Russian artifacts, but we did it more like comparing Ottoman armor and helmets to Paris, right? Remember?
Yeah.
Or Persian compared this. But a colleague said, you guys did it on Ukraine, everything they had. Why don't you have it on Russia? And I said, yeah, it's true. We have on Russia selectively, right? But I have so many artifacts from Russia. Maybe if you have time and interest, we could also do the
Oh
Russian one.
yeah, because I mean it would be crazy to ignore how much artistically Russia was influential,
Yes.
and they were given a lot of things from the south and the east and
Yes.
the west, the Tsars, uh, so that they had a lot of influences,
Yes.
and I think um, but before the real Tsardom, before Ivan the Fourth, they were much more Orientalized
Yes.
and much more Byzantine. I think it's. I read a book once studying the early development of the Russian Empire
Yes.
and all of the things that the Russians themselves were saying. This is part of the Tatar yoke. This is
Yes.
the influence of the Tatars on us. But this scholar went back and found that they nearly all were Byzantine
Yes.
because the Russians saw themselves as the third Rome. They were very strongly attached to Byzantine art, and of course, they were Orthodox, Byzantine Orthodox religious thoughts. And to some extent, the Tsardom was a continuation or a development or an imitation of the Basileus,
Yes.
the emperor.
Just one thing we talked about, you know what we are going to do? We are going to talk about Hermitage, also ethnographic museum, also from St. Petersburg, also this engineering and artillery. But this time, some of them are maybe repetition because of Persian, Indian, and Ottoman. But I think we still do it if you agree. Also,
Oh
European,
yeah,
we haven't done that. Japanese, Chinese, we will
oh, yeah,
integrate all of them like we did it. We base it on the museum, European, whatever they have, and artifacts have
yeah.
also ancient beat, lots of ancient, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a very
Yeah.
strong interest in classical
Yes.
art.
Yes.
What I mean, I've got a lot of books in Russian on art, on the big collections, because I would be looking for something that might be
Yes.
well, Ottoman or Persian or something like that.
Yes.
And there would be articles in these big Russian collections that nowhere else has
Yes. Yes.
because they kept it. So, but of course, when you've got a book, you don't just read the section that's about the thing you're interested in. You read as much of it as you can and you
Yes.
try and learn more. As a
Yes.
result, you see
Yes.
all this beautiful stuff they were
Yes.
making.
So today, some years ago, I was in Mongolia and I already, made some videos on that. But now we are going with B to discuss and talk about different things from Mongolia and Mongolian collection. Let me just share this. So these are not only going to be historical artifacts, but also other things. One of them is where the Chinggis Khan statue, they made one of the largest statues there.
Oh, yes.
And yurts, or as they call it, gers there. And so the
Yeah,
museum
you,
has 40
yeah.
meter high Chinggis Khan statue complex there, located at the base of the world's largest equestrian state, 54 kilometers from Ulaanbaatar, right? Or Ulaanbaatar,
Mhm.
as some people call it.
Yeah.
So,
Incidentally, it was Mongolian New Year. I went to a
ah,
festival in Sydney with
how
archery and
beautiful!
everything.
How
Yeah, it
beautiful!
was great.
So it features exhibits Bronze Age artifacts, archaeological findings, and also traditional felt gear, and also giant traditional leather boot. Let's go and see them.
Oh yeah, that's famous. Yeah.
That's famous, right? So you can see it here, where one of them, an iron shield. Some of them here are also newly made, but we will be discussing about that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, it's important to understand that a lot of artifacts were lost during the period um, at the fall of the Qing dynasty, like 1910, 1911, 1912,
Hmm.
until the establishment of the Mongolian Republic
Yeah.
under Choibalsan. A lot of stuff was destroyed, and then they had their own version of let's get rid of all the old stuff because it doesn't fit with the Soviet style government and culture that we want to have. So that caused a lot of things to disappear. But Mongolian culture was very strong, so they kept finding things and they kept reintroducing things. So
Yes.
it's like some cultures are just almost impossible to repress. They
Yeah.
just keep popping up like mushrooms coming out of damp ground, which is
That's
not
right.
very complimentary, but really strong culture.
Yes. So this one of the shields you can see it here, Pete.
Mm. That pattern of the three things, that's a very typical Mongolian pattern. It
Yes.
can be three or fourfold or however. It's something. It's not the same as, but it's something like the Rui Chinese pattern of the fungus of immortality. It's a um, good luck kind of symbol.
Yeah.
In Mongolian, well, in earlier Turkic cultures in Mongolia and later like Kazakh and things, it developed into like a pair of ram's horns. And again, it had uh, well wishing, kind of protective kind of connotations.
Yes. And
Yeah.
these ones
Oh,
are shaman swords, which is very
yeah.
interesting. They have this collection of these old shaman swords.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. This is strongly Tibetan influenced, as you can see.
yes,
The pommel of the sword is
yes,
part of what in Tibetan is called dorje,
yes,
in Sanskrit vajra, lightning bolt.
yes.
Um, the this type of sword was uh, popular in Tibet, and Mongolian shamanism adopted lots of things from local cultures, but it was entirely its own thing. So in Tibet, there were two religions running at the same time: Bon and um, what Vajrayana Buddhism, the type of Buddhism that Tibetan Buddhism belongs to. There's a bit of Tantrism as well,
Hmm.
but the kind of symbols crossed cultures,
Oh,
and there was a strong and sometimes very positive Tibetan influence on Mongolia. Sometimes it was negative, um, like the um, Tibetans didn't like eating fish, Mongols did. Then, over centuries of Tibetan Buddhist influence, Mongols stopped eating fish. Um, some of the Mongols I know really like fish, so it was I think it was
why
again.
didn't they? Why tell us, please, why Tibetans didn't eat fish?
Tibetan Buddhists saw fish as slimy, slithery creatures, and they represented evil and bad health and things like that. Now, this I don't know how broadly this was in Tibetan Buddhism because I've got Tibetan studies of things like this, but there were sects, yellow sect, red sect, and things. So there might have been different attitudes among different sects of Buddhism in Tibet about this. But the one that got into Mongolia was let's not eat fish, which is funny because in the secret history of the Mongols, one of the things that's very prominent is somebody gives uh, Chinggis Khan a big fish out of one
Yes.
of the rivers, and
True.
it's a really nice gift, and everybody thinks it's a good idea. So back then, everybody was happy to eat fish. Uh, Mongols I know, particularly Oirat Mongols from the west branch of the Mongolian family, particularly like seafood. So I don't know. I think it might be breaking down. Uh, Mongols are really diverse.
Yes.
Uh, you've got the Khalq, um, in the main part of Mongolia, but down in the inner Mongolia, you've got Chahar and other people like that, and there's quite a large number of dialects that are close to being different languages, like Dagur and things like that. Really are different languages. Oirat and Mongol, that's this Western Mongol and the main area of the Mongol. The languages are quite separate, but they're very tightly related.
Mm.
And I've been to places where people like I knew who were talking in Oirat to other people talking in Oirat, and it didn't sound to an untrained ear to be the same language. It was quite clearly different.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I'm lucky in Sydney. There's Mongols from all over Mongolia and inner Mongolia, so you get to run into. I mean, there's not a huge number of Mongols in Sydney, but you know, when they get together and have parties, it's good.
So this blade is a quite a strong blade with a central fuller,
Yeah,
and the disc shape is also very interesting, isn't it?
yeah. There's influences backwards and forwards between Tibet and China,
Okay.
but the Tibetan style is very distinctive. So
Very.
their two-edged swords really do not look like Chinese two-edged swords. Like a gen in China almost always is a diamond cross section. It rarely has a fuller down the center like that, but in Tibet it's quite common. And some of the Ming Dynasty period Tibetan weapons are so beautifully decorated that they were given as gifts to the Ming emperors.
Yes.
So, and of course, uh, when we talk about Tibetan, the monks in Mongolia had to learn Tibetan to recite the scriptures, and some of them, quite a few of them, were actually Tibetan by descent, or they were brought from Tibet because you could be reincarnated as an important lama randomly. They had their whole there. I think I can't remember how many reincarnated reincarnated lamas were in Mongolia. The Gypsumhamba Hutuku was the main one in Urga, which is now Ulaanbaatar. Um, he oh, it's hard to talk about reincarnated people because you can't. Is it him? His father? No, it's not him and his father. He's supposed to be the same person all the way through, like the Dalai Lama. It's the same kind of thing. Panchen Lama, Dalai Lama, and the this strong Tibetan influence on later Mongolian culture.
Mhm.
Um, the monasteries were maybe the biggest urban foundations in later Mongolian times. In the imperial time, the imperial cities were, but in later Mongolian times. And the shamanism, Mongolian shamanism, wasn't highly regarded by the lamas, but it was really deeply embedded in Mongolian culture. And the shamans had probably links in terms of um, ideas and methods of contacting the spirit world that are more generally Siberian, like northern and northeastern Siberian relating to Mongolia. So it's a quite complex series of cultures.
Yes.
And they had remarkable, they call them, shaman shirts. So you have these kind of leather shirts and they've got all little bits of metal sewn onto them, which each has a symbolic um, meaning and effect. Oh, that's a stunning one.
Yes.
That the pommel of that one looks like it's almost a Bronze Age
It
quality
does. Yeah.
because they had knives with that kind of pommel I mean, particularly found in Gansu in China,
Yes.
but from the Xiongnu period.
Yes.
And you'd have a knife with a like a bronze handle and a bronze blade,
Tell
and
us
having
what they used it for, the shamans.
well, these they performed dances. They became intoxicated by the spirits, and they danced and they beat drums and they twirled things around. And um, the sword was a symbol of power and related to various spirits. So the supreme spirit was Tengri, who was the
Yeah.
sky. Uh, in Old Mongolian, Monga Gurkha Tengri means the everlasting blue sky, and that was heaven, as the Chinese translated Dian. And then you had the Earth. So it was almost a male female thing, the Sky Father, the Earth Mother kind of thing. It's not quite that simple. And there are a whole series of spirits located with related to place and concepts and things like rivers and whatever. The closest thing I can think of outside of Mongolia is in Japan, kami,
Kami, yes.
the spirits of places and ideas. You could have a spirit that lived inside a sword. So the sword could actually be the home of a spirit in, say, a Japanese style thing. But these swords are very powerful symbols and focuses for the magic that the shaman was able to perform. So the shaman could speak to the spirits of the dead. It could speak to the spirits that control the weather. It could. It's a very complicated thing,
So,
and
B,
shamans could be
a
male or
very
female.
important question comes up, a very Western question. Are the blades functional or not? You remember we talked about this, a very
I
Western
I
idea.
I think that actual functional swords could be turned into these.
Yes, exactly.
But there are some that are made specifically to be used in ritual that have no functionality at all. This one looks like it's a old sword blade that's been remounted,
Yes,
as
very
did the
much.
previous one. Uh, and I think that was more likely to happen. I mean, there was a lot of metalworking in Mongolia,
Yeah.
um, going back thousands of years. So it's not unlikely that a shaman could commission something to be made. And in the Danish exposition in the first quarter of the 20th century, they found special tents made for traveling llamas. There was all kinds of personalized equipment, and you know, some llamas were wealthy and some weren't. Some shamans were very successful and had a lot of followers. I don't think they ever got to the wealth levels of the llamas,
Mm,
but they were still very important people in communities,
yes.
and they transmitted their a bridle. Ah, I can tell you a couple of things about this bridle.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Uh, First of all, notice the shape of the bit, how it's not a straight line with a joint in the middle. It's actually curved up like that.
Yes.
So when it's sitting in the horse's mouth, it comes out of the corners of the mouth.
Let me show it,
It's
please, for our viewers, please.
Yeah,
We're talking about this part.
yeah. So this is in Western parlance, it's a snaffle bit,
Snaffle.
which is the typical bit of Mongolia and China for that matter. You see, it's attached to two straps, and you see there's basically a noseband. I've got a bridle here of that design. We've shown it before. So you've got a noseband that sits over the nose of the horse that comes to the ring of a bit, and then straps that go up the side and over the back of the head.
Yes.
Now, this one is more elaborate. It's actually got a brow band as well. This
Yes.
is not very common in Mongolia, but sometimes really special bridles have them. You'll notice that the the part that goes under the throat, you can see the buckle
Hmm.
sticking out to the side there.
Hmm.
Um, it's quite common in Mongolia, even today, to have silver work on bridles. So some bridles are just plain rawhide that's been rolled and knotted together, and others can be really elaborate. And going back in time, there's a consistency to design. Like they'd worked out what worked best,
Hmm.
and we basically didn't change it for about 2,500 years,
Yes.
and it still works. I mean, like uh, I made a Mongol style bridle. I rode with it for several years,
Yes.
and the horse seemed to like it, and
Hmm.
it seemed to work better. And you can take the bit out of the mouth and still use the bridle because the half nose piece holds it in place, so you can use it like you're riding with a hackamore or something like that. So
Hmm.
really practice. In the Secret History of the Mongols, one of the rules is when you're on campaign
Hmm.
and you're marching, you don't let the cavalry put the bits in the mouth of the horse, because if they're there, they've got more control and they're more likely to go off chasing gazelles or something and wear their horses out, and they won't be fit when they get on campaign. There are all kinds of quite bureaucratic rules in the Secret History, but very practical when you think about what's going on. This is a standard that's related back to uh, uh, the the very famous standard related that's associated with Chinggis Khan is like a barrel shape, and it's got a trident on top with flames coming out of it.
Yes.
Now, I don't know how actually old that is, but it's strongly associated with Chinggis Khan, so it might be 13th century. But you can see the similarities to this to a Shiva trident, the
Very
Hindu god.
much. Very. The first thing which
And
comes when I saw it in Mongolia,
yeah,
I started thinking about Shiva.
well,
Exactly.
the thing to remember is there was a strong Indian presence in Central Asia,
Yeah.
um, in and further east, like
Yes.
into Takharistan, where we're talking about around the Sidam Basin, like these big deserts between the mountains, and so these kind of ideas were probably moving east,
Yeah.
and maybe got there before Buddhism. But Buddhism was really early in Central Asia and into Mongolia,
Yeah.
though the Mongols themselves weren't Buddhist, strongly Buddhist until maybe the 15th, 16th century. Now, this is really interesting. The
Yeah.
sword is kind of Chinese, kind of Tibetan.
Yeah.
It's a Chinese style scabbard. It's a
Yes.
Chinese style pommel.
Yes.
The male shirts are depicted in Qing Dynasty paintings of Mongol officers in the Qing army, and they're in the text. They talk about male shirts. So it was the Mongols when the empire was formed, they got access to the Western Steppe, and the people like Kipchak Kuman people were using mail extensively. Plus, when they got into Iran, big area for mail production.
Yes.
So mail became quite common. Now, whether any of it was made locally is a different question.
Mm.
Uh, Possibly not, but it is possible. But the male shirts tend to be short sleeve. They tend to be kind of pullover shirts with a kind of expanded neck so you can get your head through. Notice this has got reinforcements in the collar so the collar will stand up. And
Yes.
you can see that in Qing Dynasty paintings of Manchu generals who are Mongol by ethnicity. They sometimes are wearing these high collared male shirts.
Yes. They do.
Um, the the disc in Chinese translated as heart mirror, so it was to protect your heart, and essentially it's kind of a proto Cha Aina in the
Yes.
Persian sense.
Yes.
Um, the bazu bands are really quite spectacular.
There are. Pete, do you remember we were talking about Bayasangori Shahnameh, and some of them were wearing the same type of bazu band
Yeah,
with this protection?
yeah. There's details in this. If you look carefully, there's a rib structure on the arm section, which both strengthens the bazuband and possibly was good for deflecting blades. I can see three rings on each side, four rings on each side. You can just the bottom ones seem to be folded in, except on the
Yeah.
left hand one,
Yeah.
which is your proper right one.
Yeah.
The way the rivets and that are designed, I'm assuming originally they had quite thick padding,
Yeah.
which was really good. And you notice that kind of single hinge point for the back of
Yeah.
the hand
The
protection.
hinge there. Yeah.
This is quite sophisticated.
Very.
And you've got to remember that a lot of artisans were brought to Mongolia by Chinggis Khan and by his sons, like Urgadai and Mungay and people like that, and then by his grandsons. So there was, even when Kublai was fighting his brother, Eric Berger, or when he was fighting his uncle, Kaidu, uh, trade kept going.
Yeah.
I mean, there were people that were fighting each other in Mongolia that owned estates in Iran and what's now Russia,
Yeah.
where they were getting taxes from,
Yeah.
which was all organized by the central government. So it's really amazing. The helmet is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's got Buddhist incantations in Sanskrit around the top and the middle. This, like Manchu emperors had helmets like this.
Yes.
There's a famous helmet belonging to the Qianlong emperor,
Mm.
uh, and you notice it's made of different plates riveted together. You can see that hole at the top. There would have been like a dome piece on top of that, or a spike. Yeah, look at
Yeah.
how lovely that's done.
I
So
just wanted to show this.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. This is basically Kofgari work. So
Yes.
cross hatching and hammering the gold into the
Yeah.
cross hatching.
Yeah.
But you can see just how beautifully it's done. And the two ribs on the side, that's the front and back of the helmet.
Yes.
Because it's usually, this style is made in two plates.
Mm.
And you can see the holes at the top where the top piece was attached, which is
Yeah.
now gone. It
Gone.
may have had a jewel on it or something, and somebody stole it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
400 years ago. It's hard to say.
You can clearly see the pieces the helmet is made of here when you look here.
Yeah, yeah. This sometimes they ham it out in one piece, and in the Metropolitan Museum of Art Himalayan Warriors book, they're very careful at describing how the helmets they're illustrating are made. Some are one piece, some are two piece like this,
Mm.
some are 4, 8, 12, 16, up to 32 pieces. So like Japanese helmets where you could have these multiple pieces.
Yes.
This whole area was full of really talented smiths. And I'm talking from Tibet into Mongolia. Now, yeah, that one you were just showing. All right, we've got the Bazuban here.
Oh, you
We've
want to
got
talk
that.
about the helmet first?
Well, no, it's okay. Let's go on these.
Yeah.
I think, you know, the see, we know from observations of people traveling in Mongolia in the early part of the 20th century, there were Mongolian smiths and jewelers, there were itinerant Chinese smiths and jewelers, and there were Tibetan smiths and jewelers, and they're all working in the same area and they're all exchanging ideas. And I mean, metalwork in Tibet was of a very high standard. The design quality is a high standard. Mongolia tended to be more practical.
Yeah.
Uh, China, again, was fairly pragmatic because the army wasn't high status in China.
Yeah.
So it tended to be more utilitarian in its equipment. Though swords had a prestige, so you often find very beautifully made swords. But those bazubans, they're really, I mean,
Mm.
they could be out of, as you said, like late Timurid miniatures.
Yeah.
They've got all that feeling. Though some of the Timurid ones, the inside plate was actually just
Yeah.
hinged on. There was no mail in them, and these ones don't have mail in them either, by the looks of things. So we kind of forget that we're used to seeing Iranian bazubans from maybe the 15th century to the 19th century, and they nearly all incorporate some mail. But before then, they didn't.
They didn't.
Yeah, and you know, it's just changing usage because you know maybe after a certain period of time, they wanted them lighter and easier to put on,
Yeah.
and able to fit more people with different sized arms. Because
Yes.
remember, I mean, our arms they look as though they're a kind of standard size, but they're not, and they vary greatly. Like when I was younger, the muscles in the you know up near my elbow were really big. And as I've got older, they got smaller. But people think of the kind of exercises people did in the old days and think of how that would have built up muscles.
Yes.
And Mongolia was a center of wrestling as well. Wrestling was one of the three manly pursuits.
Yes.
And not always manly, because one of the reasons they say they made those wrestling jerkins was because there was a very famous female wrestler and they wanted to stop women taking part because sometimes they won. It sounds fairly apocryphal, but it's a funny story, so it's worthwhile repeating. But yeah, so you get that kind of complex relationship there. But wrestling was important. I mean, I know in Iran it's very important, and in Mongolia still it's a really important thing.
Yes.
It
And
just makes you wonder
yeah,
what
you see
happens
that
when you really.
across the blade beat. Blade is very strong. Do you see the
Yeah,
mid
this is a
section?
much more Chinese style blade. Notice how the point is more pronounced as well.
Yes.
I would say that once upon a time there was a Quillen block
Yeah,
that fitted onto that,
yeah.
and it's disappeared.
Yes,
See, I mean, these are hundreds of years old, so obviously not everything survives.
yes. And
And
here
sometimes,
you see this
yeah,
decoration on many
yeah,
Chinese
yeah,
scabbards.
it's very typical. I've got something on the Amur River, which is the kind of boundary with Manchuria and Siberia, um, famous for its sturgeon, and you see scabbard fittings like this going back 1,000 years.
Yes,
So it was very popular, and you would, if you were a rich herder or something and you wanted a sword, you might go to your local swordsmith, or you
yes,
might have one imported from China, because Chinese merchants knew what the people wanted. And of course, there's different levels of um, produce and things that are being sold. Like the big trade was in tea, because Mongols love tea.
yeah,
Chinese grew a lot of tea. So, and I mean, tea went up through Mongolia, but it also went into the Russian Empire all the
yes,
way to the west. So there's particular type. Well, there's a name for it, Russian caravan tea. So this is a big thing at the time. Now this is an interesting helmet.
yeah,
Again, it's a well, I'm guessing it's a two-piece helmet. What they what they sometimes did, some helmets are built like this. You have the two halves, and on the inside, you've got two strips that are riveted to hold the two halves together. And then on the outside, you have a decorative strip, which isn't structural, it's just to conceal the other rivets and things like that. Because that could be brass or it could be gilded metal, depending on how important the person was.
yes,
You see the steel reinforced leather um,
yeah,
ear flaps. There would be a back flap as well. You see
yeah.
that very little brim. This is very typical after I don't know, I think it's late 1400s, early 1500s, that becomes quite prominent. Though, if you look at Persian miniatures from the Ilkhanid period, you do see some helmets that already appear to have that
Yes.
in when they're depicting Mongol warriors. So, you don't want to be too careful. You don't want to be too precise in dating things when there could be earlier examples you're not familiar with. Oh, yeah, these are classics.
Nice, huh?
See that? Yeah, see that kind of like cylinder and then cone and then
Yeah,
dome on the top.
yeah,
Whereas the other one on the right is a more smooth curve coming to
yes,
the topmost dome. They both have reinforcements down the front.
yeah.
Um, the one on the left has its brow protection. You notice that the actual helmet is below that. That's above the. It's not like on, say, a Turkish helmet where when the helmet comes down, then the brow comes out. On these, they're mounted above the
Above.
actual helmet itself. So it's uh, probably more a reinforcement than it is a protection. Though most of them, that's just folded metal, so it's not a solid piece. It's hollow, and the bottom part is not enclosed. Generally speaking, the ones I've seen.
Mm.
Um, so it's really interesting. You can see if you look really careful at the one on the left, you can see where the rivets are
Yeah,
going around.
yeah.
They're almost kind of totally blended in to the helmet itself. That style of helmet, both styles of helmet actually, the one on the left goes back to the late 1400s, early 1500s. The one on the right may be actually older in terms of its design. I don't know about the actual helmet itself,
These
but
are old
that
helmets, right, Pete?
oh yeah, I would say the one on the left maybe mid 1500s. Um, the one on the right, I'm not sure. It could be older, it could be younger, and an older style. But they're important pieces of equipment. There's beautiful ones in. Oh, there you go. Eyebrows. Everybody likes eyebrows on their helmets.
Look at these ones.
Yeah, and the one on the left is a multi-plate, four-plate helmet, I think,
Yeah.
with two underlapping sides, an overlapping front and back, riveted together. Now, earlier on, they would have been laced together.
Yeah.
but they knew riveting. So they could be contemporary with lace ones. You notice that the one on the right, that brow band with the eyebrows,
Mm.
is riveted onto the main bowl of the helmet, and it's got holes for the attachment of the ear protection and on the side. Um, they're really nice helmets. The
Yeah.
one on the left could be really old, maybe like 13th century, 14th century,
Yeah,
something
many
like
of
that.
them are
The one on
excavated, Pete.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that has the look of it. Uh, but it's such. I mean, that design with lacing instead of riveting was still being made in Tibet until the 1700s, 1800s, because it's just a nice design. Um,